item number 10, elections canvas.
Move the item.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Miller.
I do have a little bit to say about this election. There was a lot of confusion up in Maricopa County over felt tip pens, and we saw the ballots that had the bleed through, and we also heard the stories of individuals at the machines, at the polls. They have different counting equipment than Pima County does, that were hitting some sort of an override button. Has that been proven? I don't know. I have just heard the stories. We also know that Maricopa, they count the votes at the polls. Pima County counts them down at central count. You basically put your ballot in a dumb box. And the voters up there in Maricopa County were inserting a ballot into the machine, and then it would get rejected somehow based on the bleed through. And it basically kicks that ballot back out, gives the person an opportunity to cure their ballot on the spot. And the allegation that poll workers were pushing this override button up in Maricopa County, that leads to a question here in Pima County. How does this work on the machines in Pima County if someone inserts a ballot, one of the poll workers, to do the count, and it gets rejected? How does that process work?
Mr. Chairman, let me ask Brad Nelson, our elections director, to talk about ballots as they're evaluated for potential duplication, and then what happens if a ballot is actually rejected from a tabulation machine.
Ms. Nelson.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Supervisor Miller's definition of what happens in Maricopa County is probably as good as I could do as well. I've not been up in Maricopa County to actually see their process there. But here within Pima County, there are no scanners at the machines, or pardon me, at the precincts. Individuals receive their ballots after showing necessary identification and signing the signature roster, and then are excused to their privacy booth to vote their conscience. Their ballot is then placed into a receptacle. It is not an electronic device of any variety. And then once that ballot is returned to election headquarters, the ballots cast at the polls on election night are counted at election night. If there is an overvote or some inability for the scanner to read that person's ballot, there is the availability to duplicate that ballot. So if an individual has written on a ballot for, say, that they wanted initially to vote for candidate A, but they've written a note that they really want to vote for candidate B, that is actually sent for duplication purposes. If there is no way to tell the intent of the voter, let us say they've colored in the bubble for both A and B, and you cannot tell the intent of the voter, and it's a vote for one contest, that office itself is overvoted and no votes are cast for that ballot, pardon me, for that particular contest, but the entirety of the rest of the ballot is counted, assuming that the voter filled it out correctly.
Does the machine actually reject the ballot when you're counting it?
Our devices, our scanning devices, have 3 output trays, and one of those output trays can output ballots that need additional adjudication or a review by an individual board. When I say an individual board, it's not a single individual, it's a board of mixes of political parties that try to determine the intent of the voter.
And what are the other 2 reasons? What are the other 2 outputs? One, I guess, is probably for...
One of the outputs, as you can probably appreciate, is ballots with no problems whatsoever that were read appropriately. The other is for write-in candidates. When a person colors in the bubble besides the candidate name, the machine says, there's a write-in candidate here, but we have no idea what the write-in candidate's name is. Those are then also sent to a very similar board so they can distinguish whether the candidate is a bona fide write-in candidate or not.
And is the, so if poll workers there, do they have the ability, as they do at the polls in Maricopa on our machines, do they have the ability to push an override button of any sort?
There is not, because the device is not electrical in nature or a scanning device whatsoever. As an individual receives their ballot, and indeed the same information is posted inside the voting booth and in the sample ballot that people receive at their homes, they are instructed that if they make a mistake, they vote for candidate A and candidate B, go to the poll workers. They have the ability to spoil that original ballot and get a replacement.
But I'm talking about when you're at central count, when you have the ballots, does the poll worker have, or anyone have the ability to hit an override button like they do in Maricopa?
The answer is no. Those trays are set up so that there is physical determination by that board made up of political party individuals.
So it would only go to one of the three output?
Correct.
Okay. And as those reports started coming out of Maricopa County, you can imagine I started getting all kinds of phone calls from individuals who were using felt tip pens at the polls. I don't know what those pens look like because I don't vote at the polls. And some reported that they brought their own ballpoint pen, blue or black, and they were not allowed, they were told not to use the ballpoint pen because they brought it because of COVID. They wanted to use their own pen, and they were told you must use the felt tip pens at the poll. And that created an issue of trust. People were very confused by that. So that led me to start to look into the various instructions on, because I went, no, you never use a felt tip pen, ever. Well, I looked at the official voting instructions that are mailed with early ballots, which is how I vote. Makes it convenient, and it's also easy to track your ballot. Step one, it says pay close attention to these instructions. Step one, vote by marking the oval in front of the candidate or issue. Fill in the oval completely with a black or dark blue pen. Do not, in capital letters, use a Sharpie type pen, as it will bleed through. And I have flare pens. I use them all the time. They bleed through. The ink will, if you hold them down long enough, the ink will bleed through. And then I went to the voter guide that was mailed out to voters. And what it says there, instructions to voters, and this was the voter guide mailed out to everyone. You may use a black or dark blue pen or a felt tip pen. You may use them. So then we have another issue. I believe it was the day after the election. I don't have the exact date of the post. This was posted up on Pima County's, I guess, by the communication department. The felt tip pen ballot controversy burning through social media is false. Well, it wasn't false in Maricopa. I've seen the actual ballots. Don't get caught up in it. Arizona ballot tabulating machines can read ballots marked with a felt tip pen. Felt pens are discouraged because the ink can bleed through. And this is from Pima County Communications Department on the Pima County Facebook page. If it does bleed through, the ballot will most likely get sent for duplication so it can be read by the scanner. The image with this post is the text from the Arizona Secretary of State's election manual, and they have the various procedures if a ballot must be duplicated. And if it's damaged or unreadable for any reason, you ensure the correct ballot style for the voter's precinct, mark the proper precinct, record an identical serial number on both the original ballot and the duplicate ballot, including spoiled duplicates, and it ties the ballots together and creates a paper trail. Is that the process we use here? For example, if we wanted to look at every single spoiled ballot that was cured during the count, do we have those all stapled together and filed somewhere?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Miller, the law actually requires an audit of both the original ballot and the duplicated ballot, who made those duplications and why. So there is a log of each and every duplicated ballot and who did it and why.
we have the actual physical ballots, we maintain those.
Correct.
Okay.
Those are stamped original, so that we'll know that it was the original ballot, and the duplicate ballot is marked, needless to say, duplicate, as well as a document locator that ties the duplicate to the original.
Okay. So those, we have those available for examination by whenever this election takes place. And then they talk about using the damaged or unreadable ballot as a guide, mark a blank ballot with votes identical to those on the original ballot. And I think you already addressed this. Do we have more than one person in this process at the count center?
In the duplication process, yes, there is a mix of political parties who determine the intent of the voter on that ballot that cannot be read, and then transfers the intent of the voter onto a duplicate ballot.
So there's an agreement between the various individuals.
That is-
This is what it is.
That is correct.
What happens in the event there isn't an agreement?
In the event there is a disagreement, then it goes to what's known as a snag board. The snag board is made up of the political party representatives from the chair, that's part of the accuracy and certification board, and then myself, I'm the third person on that board that makes the determination.
Okay. And if we don't have enough, did we have enough Republican poll workers to fill all of the slots available to Republicans? Because I know there's a certain number of workers for Republicans and Democrats, because they're the two major parties, and they're allowed to fill those. And in the event that they're not filled, I think you get to appoint whoever's available, whether it's another Democrat sitting next to a Democrat or another Republican sitting next to a Republican. Is that correct?
That's correct. Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Miller, in advance of the primary election that we held on August 4th, we were really hurting for poll workers regardless of their party affiliation. Immediately after the primary election, we were inundated with individuals of multiple party affiliations to serve as poll workers. For those of you who do not understand the mix of political parties, the inspector must be a member of one of the recognized political party. There are two individuals known as judges, and the marshal also must be affiliated, and they must be a mix of party affiliations. The remainder of the ladies and gentlemen who serve as clerks on Election Day have to be registered voters, but they could, in theory, be independents or non-affiliated voters. But we did have sufficient numbers.
We had sufficient from each of the two major parties.
Yes.
Okay, so that explains the process. I guess what bothers me about this confusion, and because I was arguing with someone, I go, no, it says you cannot use a felt tip pen. And they said, I'm looking at my instructions right now. So we got into a back and forth. And then she texted me the instructions that she was looking at. And I went, oh, there's a conflict here. This is really troublesome to me that people are getting mixed messages. And I think what happened with the situation in Maricopa, it created a sense of, wait a minute, what's going on in Pima because of those Sharpie pens? Is there a reason that we're using, and they're not, they don't have the name Sharpie on them, but Sharpie type, I would call a Flair or any kind of felt tip pen a Sharpie type pen, which on my instructions do not use it. Is there a reason that we're using those at the poll?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Miller, I think certainly I will acknowledge that there was confusion between the instructions that were given to individuals who voted early and the information that they received in their packet that was somewhat contrary to the information that was received in the sample ballots for individuals who received at their homes. The information that is provided with the early ballot packet is provided by the recorder. I don't presume to speak for the recorder, but I think perhaps their instructions are from a time when we had our previous scanning system, meaning previous to 2014. In those particular situations, there was a need to make a particular colored ink. So I would suggest to you that perhaps that the instructions from the recorders needs to be updated because of the new scanning equipment that we have since 2014. Scanning of the scanning equipment is tested, not just by the county, but individually and separately by the political parties and the Secretary of State as well. In those tests, they try different writing instruments, pencils, pens, colors of inks to check its sensitivity. And to date, we have had no trouble with felt tip pens at all. In fact, at the polling places, it is not the prescribed, but the offered pen to individuals who come and mark their ballots at polls.
Are those the only instruments that you provide at a poll, the felt tip pens?
They are the only instruments that are actually placed in the booth. I would expect that individuals who might bring their own pen because of COVID-related concerns, they are certainly allowed to do so, and I happen to give all of the instruction classes to the poll workers in advance of their service on Election Day, and I inform them that they could bring their own particular pens or whatever writing instrument. And while I'm on the process of pens, it could even be a pencil.
Mm-hmm. Who would want to vote with a pencil, but you know, I get it.
Yeah.
The machine will read it. These newer machines
Right.
will read it. And then we have, after, you know, the confusion between the poll and whether it's the recorder's office, the elections office, and then we have Pima County saying we discourage using felt tip pens, and I believe that was posted the day after the election or when this controversy came about. I think we really need to get a process in place that is common across all the polls, the mail-in ballots, and Pima County communications all need to get on the same page, because this created a lot of grief for a lot of people, and now they're not trusting the elections in Pima County because of the situation in Maricopa County. And the situation in Maricopa County, I think if people understand, it's completely different equipment. They actually had ballots that showed significant bleed through. I don't know if there was even the same type of pens, but they were some sort of a Sharpie type pen. So this has created a great distrust in the elections in Pima County as a result of these confusing instructions, and then Pima County putting on their Facebook page. And the thing that really bothered me is, don't worry, you know, if we have to, we will discern your vote for you. And people just, their hair catches on fire when they hear that, as mine would. I don't want anybody discerning my vote. I want to know exactly what I need to use. I want to do my own vote, and I want it to be read properly. So this is a big deal. I don't think we can take this lightly, because we've damaged ourselves and the credibility of our elections, even though I think we have a great election process here in Pima County. And I vote by mail early, because you can go right on the website and track your ballot every step of the way. You know when it's transferred over to elections. I know they check the signatures, because my husband gets a phone call when he changes a signature. And so I know they're doing a really good job, and I know elections has a good process. This was not a good process. So I guess my questions here, I think, gone through them all, and I'm really concerned that there are still people in the community feeling uneasy about this election. And I think that we need to address that before we certify. I want to see something so that the voters feel confident, because I've never had people feel like their votes were stolen until this election since I've been in Pima County, and it was just this glitch. And apparently it's been there a while, and there was never an issue in Maricopa prior, and no one noticed it because things went smoothly and we didn't have any problems. So I'd like to hear, you know, what we're going to do. I think we really need to, I know the recorder is a separate office from the elections office, but we really need to get that reconciled. And I really think something needs to be addressed so that the voters feel that their votes were counted appropriately, and whether that's allowing them to see how a spoiled ballot is processed, something. And I think these issues with the pens, I think they need to be shown that there's no issue, that ballots went through, maybe look at some of the ones that got rejected and why, that kind of thing. And I know there are laws about privacy and that kind of thing, but I really believe that strongly. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Christy.
I would like to just add to the comments of Supervisor Miller that she uncovered during her questioning, and just to say that ordinarily the canvass of election results would be a routine element of administrative action and procedure and housekeeping by this board. It is unfortunately apparent that this year's election process is by no means routine. The canvass of Pima County's election results is a part of a statewide canvass that is in turn a part of a nationwide canvass and certification of what many would like to consider as final and decisive voting results. I cannot, in good conscience, confidently state that final voting tabulations are final and decisive. There is too much evidence that there is at best statewide and national irregularities and at worst out and out voter fraud. I would be derelict in my duty to vote to certify the canvassing of any votes at any level. The charges of voter fraud throughout the election process must be addressed, as Supervisor Miller alluded to, and investigated. The claims of such voting illegalities are too far and wide and deep to be ignored. Until assurances are given to all voters that there was no fraud, I will not approve Pima County's canvass, and I will vote against it accordingly. Until this controversy is settled by all entities involved, I must vote against this canvass, and I am insisting there be at very least that all ballots go through a hand recount and or a forensic audit. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any other comments? Hearing none, there is a motion before us to approve the canvass. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please
Roll
signify by
call, please. Roll call, please, Mr. Chairman.
Madam Clerk, roll call.
Sorry. Supervisor Bronson?
Yes.
Supervisor Christy?
No.
Supervisor Miller?
No.
Supervisor Villegas?
Yes.
Chairman Valadez?
Yes.